I can tell you one thing. Technology is the single most important aspect of every business that has successfully scaled.
It's time for that Real Estate Tech Guy. It's your weekly chance to explore how technology can help your real estate business explode. Each week, you'll hear from real estate investors who have been there and done that, and find out their favorite technology tips. Listen in as Jordan speaks with tech companies and learns about new technologies and new ideas that will help you scale your business. And now, join your host, Jordan Samuel Fleming, CEO of Smartphone, for this week's episode.
All right, let's kick this off with episode number 1. My co-pilot for today on the That Real Estate Tech Guy podcast is TerryThayer. Terry is pretty much everything, I think, at this point. I mean, there's not much Terry doesn't do within the real estate space. I'm going to actually leave it to the man himself to give a little introduction on to the main things he's doing right now. Terry, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Jordan, thanks for having me. First and foremost, yeah, I mean, what we're doing, we're in all things real estate. So we've got a market acquisitions company doing wholesaling. We're buying, or because we have our own pot of, let's call it real estate, we pick some off and as rental properties. We were flipping some of these properties. We don't flip that much right this minute. I have a bunch of different creative type of ways that we take down deals. We have a new construction company. We build about $30 million plus homes every single year in North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina. And then we have the rental company, and we're actually shifting right now. We're in the process of shifting some of these long-term rentals into short and mid-term rentals is our newest journey that we're getting ready to launch here in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, I'm going to follow up on that. And of course, the other element you've got going for you that's in the real estate space is the tab, the absolute best. And not only do you have a mentorship program, but you've also got the event coming up in September of 2022. I'm going to be there. Smartphone's going to be sponsoring it. Tell us a little bit about Tab and the Tab event.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be in Jamaica this year. This is the second time we've done this in Jamaica, the 6th event that we've done. And actually, it's going to be the final one that we're opening to the public. We're going to keep this close within our internal mentorship and mastermind moving forward. But yeah, we typically get a couple hundred real estate investors from all over the country down there for an entire week. And it's not just an event. It's like most events, 80% what I call the classroom, and you've got, 20% of networking. We've completely flipped it. 4 of the days, 4 of the hours is the event, the production, all that stuff. And the rest of the time is going to be networking. We require all of our speakers and sponsors to be there the entire time, to be available. So it's not like that whole thing where somebody gets up on stage, speak, wave, and then they're gone. You never get to see them. This is real. We get to connect with these people and, be at the swim up bar, having lunch, dinner, go on excursions. So it's a really good event as far as not just the networking, the learning, but experience, vacationing. It's a complete write-off, of course, because you're doing it for your business. So yeah, man, it's just a really good event. You were there last year. We're excited to have you again there this year.
Yeah, well, and I will, I'm going to put all the links in the podcast page and description to make sure you guys have a chance to sign up. I'll say personally, I've been to a lot of events. I've worked a lot of events, and I've sponsored events, spoken at events, all those sorts of things. And I love Tab because the structure that Terry just outlined means that the relationships you form go a lot deeper, right? Like I still am chatting on WhatsApp to people I met at Tab last year, and it's just relationship tabbing, stuff. It's just, but I'm seeing deals fly around. I'm seeing people, because they built a relationship, they're reaching out and saying, "Oh, you're in this market. I've got something for you." And I think I have not seen many events that do that level of relationship building. And I think Tab is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, and as you witnessed, after Monday, after boat day, everybody's best friends. Like it's like everybody has known each other for years and years and years. So it's a good way to connect with people. And like you said, business relationships. I just learned a couple months ago, I was talking to somebody and they told me they went to the second Tab retreat that we did 4 or 5 years ago, whenever that was. They said that a group of them got together and they created an accountability group. And today, to this day, still they still meet, they still hold each other accountable, they still have conversations as a group, which I thought was pretty cool.
That's I think that's a testament to the structure. I mean, so I'm excited, and I will put all the tab information in the podcast. I recommend it to everybody. There's even, if you use the link that I put in the podcast, you can get a little discount on it as well. It's worth its weight in gold, and it's definitely worth getting there. But for now, we're going to dive into what we're here to talk about, which is real estate and technology. Because as you know, and I'm one of the reasons I'm coming to Tab again is to speak about the kind of thing that everybody says they love, but nobody takes seriously enough to do it well about 95% of the time. And that is, over the last 15 years, I have helped businesses scale. And over the last 8, a lot of them in real estate, because technology is a bullet that you can fire and really, really charge up your business if you take it seriously and if you implement it properly. So if we think about your, like the wholesaling business you got now, technology is a key part. What's been your kind of, if you think about your journey as an investor, I know a bit of your story, but how has your has your understanding of technology evolved and how important it is or not, to be fair?
Massively. I got into the real estate business in 2002. Okay, so 20 years ago, got into real estate business. It wasn't until 2017 that I started using a CRM and a phone system and all these other different things. Put it this way, I used to have a team of VAs that I would send them over addresses and they would manually skip trace, like back then, right? I would buy data and sift it out, send it over, and they're over to skip trace in it for numbers so that we can call them and try to take down deals. So massive growth since 2017, and the importance of it is it makes a huge difference from one piece to another. So we're really picky on exactly what we're using to get our results.
And I think a lot of times the focus for technology, when I hear, when I talk to real estate investors, a lot of times they the word that speaks to them or jumps off their tongue is CRM, right? That is just, they just say CRM, oh, my CRM, right? And setting aside what they mean by CRM, the CRM is an integral part, but it's not the only part. Technology can take a huge place in the lead generation aspect, in the facilitation of closing and contracts and all that. We'll get to CRM in a moment, but aside from the CRM piece, what are some key things that maybe you didn't realize the technology would hit so hard on, but has proved to be the case?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, when you're a one-man band, I mean, it's one thing, right? I mean, you kind of get away with spreadsheets. You can kind of get away with using your cell phone and things like that, right? But if you're thinking about the long game, if you're thinking about the end, you're not going to be that one-person band, right? And as you grow and as you evolve, that was my biggest mistake, is I have all this data and all these different things in so many different places. And as we start to grow and expand and build a team, and first of all, you can't run a team off spreadsheets. You can't run a team and hold them accountable off of just using their cell phone, right? There's so much data that you can collect by using the right technology. And that's how you truly grow a business, is through data, KPIs. And that's how you can shift, how you can, whether you're doing good or why you're not doing bad, or why you're not doing good. Sorry.
And it was something I'll pick up as well on what you're talking about, data, that ability to collaborate and work, as you say, one-man band, you can operate on like old school Rolodex almost, and pen and paper. But the moment you start to scale up, and most people I know who get into business for themselves are looking to scale. Very, very few people I know who got into real estate to really do very little. Most people want to scale. So that collaboration element, how does that kind of to fit as well from a technology point of view?
You meaning with the team?
Yeah, collaboration with your team. I mean, because that's you said you can't really build a bigger business with spreadsheets. Explain to me a bit about how kind of collaboration comes into it.
I mean, so for example, I mean, it's like, I'll hit a couple points. You mentioned about CRM. CRM, you've got your data coming in there, right? We connect our phone system to the CRM. We can see all the recorded calls are in our CRM. Any kind of text messages in our CRM. Now, if we talk about, or even talking within each other, we can all that stuff could be done in one place, so we can collaborate, right? But then it says, how do I know if somebody is doing what they're supposed to be doing? How do I know that what their talk time is? How do I know how many dials that they're doing, right? That's one thing. Here's another thing. Okay, so if you have a lead intake person, and what's the last thing you want to do is hang up the phone and then have somebody else call them back. But to be able to pass that off and be able to do a live transfer directly from that person to a closer, lead intake to a closer, like that's huge, because we don't have to chase and try to we get it while it's hot, we get it while it's warm, and then the closer can go ahead and close it. So I mean, the list goes on and on and on about being able to put them on hold and listen to the conversations. And there's a lot of cool features that really help us lock down deals, do better.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to get into the CRM word because everybody talks about CRMs. I don't think a lot of people understand CRMs, but that's coming from a guy who built CRMs for 15 years. And I get, I get tired of hearing people talk about it without doing it. But one of the things that I've always heard from real estate investors is follow up, right? Like the win is in the follow up. And, for me, when I think of a way technology can really impact a real estate investment business, the follow-up, if I was going to put right up towards the top, it would be no lead left behind sort of mentality, and making sure you don't drop anything out, making sure you don't just let something go cold because it's not organized. How do you, what are your thoughts around follow-up, how important it is, and how maybe have you seen technology, help with that, or maybe you're not doing enough of it? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, we preach it every single day. I would over 95% of the deals are taken down through follow-up. Well over 95. I don't even know what the number is. It's pretty much every deal, right? Occasionally you get one call closes, somebody calls and you close. We do everything virtual over the phone. So by far, we have a whole system, with the whole hot, warm, cold type of list. And just constantly okay, if it's hot, we're working that lead until we get that thing in contract. If it's warm, we may want to follow up with them, once a week or something. Just keep pushing that whole thing. If it's cold, it might go on, depending on how cold it is. We might put it in anywhere from a 2 to 6 month follow-up. But until that property sells, it's always a lead. Even if they want us to go on to don't call me anymore, put me on a do not call list. We'll call them, 6 months later. They won't remember it was us that called them.
All right, as the CEO of Smartphone, I got to distance myself from that one, or the FCC may come calling. Trying to get me sued here, but no, I think the point though, the real point is the follow up is the key. And if you're looking at, I talk to a lot of new investors, and they're asking about what should I look for in a CRM, right? In a real estate CRM. And the first one for me is, what is the follow-up? What is the automation and workflow that means you won't drop anything, right? And, if you do that as the only thing you do for the first 3 months, make sure that is in place. I would say you're off to a running start on that. Now, you see new people all the time. I mean, how much do you think, the follow-up mentality you're describing actually gets put in, how much do you think they actually believe in it?
Not enough. I mean, I have people in my mentorship program that I've just got to beat it in their head until they finally oh yeah, you're right. They start seeing that, and they're just taking on new leads every single day. It's if you want to grow a business, if you want no lead left behind, we talk about that all the time. There's no reason for it. So yeah, I mean, it's super important. I think it probably gets implemented, I would say probably 20-25% of the time.
Wow.
Meaning 20-25% of people actually implement and go hard and have a good solid follow-up system.
Wow. And I mean, listening to that, if I'm a real estate investor and I'm thinking, what's one thing? I always try and distill things down to just a couple action points because, you give people 50 things to do and they're going to be like, they're going to freak out and they're not going to be able to execute any of it. You give them 1, 2, or 3 things to do and they're going to be able to focus on them. So, for me, implementing a good follow-up structure and an automated follow-up structure so that you're not using manpower to do some of the basics, would be key. Now, when it comes to follow-up, is the purpose, as a non-real estate investor, is half the purpose of the follow-up just to keep you in their consciousness? Like, are you just trying to buff it along? So it's like when it comes time to sell, they're like, oh yeah, this guy.
Well, that's one. That's top of mind, right? Top of mind awareness, TOMA. That's one. But people's circumstances, they change, right? We may talk to them one day and everything's fine. Next day, spouse passed away. Kids decide to move away. A divorce. It could be their job moved. I mean, they lost their job. They can't afford it. I mean, the list goes on. COVID, right? The list goes on and on and on and on and on. So it's like, just because it was no today, that means no, not right now, right? And so we just need to constantly follow up and have a conversation. Here's another scenario. What just happened with massive inflation, right? A year ago, we can only offer down here, right? A year later, like we can actually offer them what they want, probably even more. So it just depends on how savvy they are. If they moved with it, the inflation, their number moved with inflation, that it doesn't work. But if their number stayed about the same, then we locked down a lot of deals during that time using that follow-up strategy.
And really, I think that's such a great point of the fact that the circle, I think we assume a lot about people based on a conversation. I assume I know everything about this person because I've had a chat with them and they're not interested in selling right now. But as you pointed out, that is not necessarily going to be true forever. It's not even necessarily going to be true for the rest of the week. So by not the lead is there until that lead is well and truly dead, i.e. the house is gone from them, or they've done something drastic. Really, you're giving them the opportunity to use you as well.
Yeah. Somebody's going to buy that property at some point in time, right? If I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, I'm not selling, I'm dying in this property. And then, within 6 months, a year, we're buying the property, right? And a lot of it has to do with the whole know, like, and trust, right? You call them once. We're cold calling. If we're cold calling them, it's cold call PPC, inbound, outbound. But if you've got a outbound type of marketing, half times they don't even know that they didn't even have a thought that they even wanted to sell. So now you're planting a seed and then you have to nurture that seed. If you planted a seed and walked away and didn't water it and you didn't give it sunlight, it's never going to grow. So it's the exact same thing here, but people are like, oh, they said no, I'm never going to sell this house. I'll die in this house type of thing. And then they give up. Right. The way I look at it is I'm like, look, we work every lead. Like, if we don't get this lead, we don't lock this down, we don't do something with this lead, we're not eating tonight.
Yeah. And I love that idea of cold call, planting the seed of the idea into their heads. Like, they may not even have thought about selling a house, but they didn't even realize the opportunity that they could get, a quick out with cash in their hand and take a massive headache off their hands. You suddenly plant that seed in their heads, and and suddenly they're like, oh, geez, maybe I could move to Florida and stop experiencing the winters in fucking, Pennsylvania. Maybe I could
Right.
have a better climate.
Exactly.
So now, I mean, obviously, we talked a little bit about phone systems, and full disclosure, Terry's team does use smartphone, which is my company. But what I'm really wanting to ask, on phones specifically, because you're doing cold calling and follow-ups on the phone, I find that, training and quality control is one of the sort of critical things around, particularly something like a phone. When you're talking about speaking to people on the phone, mannerisms, language, attitude, all these things come into play, which don't necessarily if you're sending an email, right? Or if you're sending a text. How do what's your thinking around, the best ways to train people, and maybe the best ways to make sure they're continuing to do it, keeping that quality up?
Yeah, of course. And this actually, when we had a virtual team, this really went into play, and this was really a critical piece, was in your system, we could listen to in on the call. So we could listen in on the call, we could whisper to them, barge into the call. We could be sitting there talking to them on Slack or something, saying, hey, tell them you're going to bring your manager in, and then boom, we just barge in the call. But we could assist them by having conversations with them, telling them, hey, say this, hey, say this, hey, say this, and to train them. Like, it's working that muscle for them when they know exactly what words to say. And then here's the magical part. When you're telling them what words to say, and then all of a sudden it works. Wow, bam, like, it gets a win, a boost of dopamine with it, right? So it's like, they remember if you say it like this, boom, you get the result. So love how you can listen in, whisper, or whatever the word is.
Listen, whisper, and barge. You got it.
Okay, I am saying the right words. Listen, whisper, and barge into the call. So I think that's huge for training. And then not only that, like, we have a new guy right now. Carl is in the process of training. So he's put him through a training program for a couple of days, gets him on the phone, and guess what happens on every single phone call? They're all recorded, right? Gets him on the phones. He's like, look, just drive, fall, trip, scrape your knees, bump your head. You know what I'm saying? We're going to come back. And what he's doing is, 3/4 of the day goes by. He starts listening to some of his calls, finishes up some more in the morning, and then and writes down notes. And then he'll sit down with that person the next day and be like, hey, look, you did this. Don't do like this, do like this. Like, and just, again, same thing, but we're not doing it live, but we're listening to recordings and be able to use it for training. And then on the flip side, we could use those exact same recordings and do voiceovers, or stop them and say, hey, he said this. We wouldn't say it like this. We'd say it like this, right? And then also good calls, like, this is exactly how you do it, right? Use those good calls for trainings. So I think it's critical to be able to have something like that in order to properly train people.
Yeah, I remember one of the things that I really loved. I listened to one of the investors speak about how he had a team of probably 10 or 11 callers, and he was saying that every week they go, one of their acquisitions manager, whoever it is, combs through the calls and picks out 2 really good calls and 2 really bad calls, and puts them in front of the team, not as a way to shame the agents, because it's not about that. But it's about having the team then listen to them together and point out the good and point out the bad. And, so rather than you kind of become the schoolmaster where you are, projecting to them, you're getting them to say, okay, guys, tell me a bit about what's good and what's bad about these. I thought that was a really clever way of doing it. I
actually used to do that once a week as well. We had a big team. We would take one good, one bad. And we would just be like, I didn't say pick out, because it was pretty damn obvious which one was bad and which one was good. But it was like, what could this person have done better? We would run through it for, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then stop it, and then, pick it back up. And we would literally coach that person on how to be better. But a lot of times it was like, it's just like someone could just literally have it's like their memory erases. Like, they just had a bad call. Like, they locked down 3 deals the day before, but then they act like they don't know what they're doing on the next call.
Absolutely. And, it's so funny. One of the things that I also, before we move on to the fast 5 questions, which are coming up, I have one, observation about that. And I wondered about what you thought about it. I feel like sometimes we don't train people to listen enough, because I've listened to calls where if you're a good salesperson, you hear you hear those cues of where to guide the conversation, and you pick them up. And then sometimes when you listen to those calls that you lost, you're sitting there going, this person was gonna set, like they were ready, and you didn't listen properly.
I know. It's
How much do you
painful.
feel listening, training people to listen is an important part? I'm just curious.
Oh, 100%. Listen 80, talk 20 is the whole deal, what we're trying to accomplish. But it's like you say that, but at the same time, it's this. If you drive a conversation properly, all you're doing is you're pitching, right? You're pitching. You're trying to keep the ball on their side of the court. You're trying to talk about hockey. I think you play hockey, right? You're into hockey, right? You're trying to keep the puck on their side of the what do you call it? Ice,
in their
whatever,
zone is
whatever.
fine. In their zone.
Yeah, right. But you're trying to keep it on their side as much as possible. And the way you do that is you ask better questions and then gets them talking. So therefore, I mean, a lot of times, if you do it right, they will sell you on why you should buy their property.
Absolutely.
And it's the idea.
Well, I said this to my team the other day. We were doing some training for my success team, and I said, look, think about it at its most basic level. If you go to a bar and you on a first date with someone, and that person is only talking about themselves and projecting at you and never asking you a question, are you going to be interested in speaking to this person, or are you going to dump them at the appetizers? And it's not that dissimilar, right? I mean,
right.
Right. You're trying to generate a conversation here. You're not trying to just throw them into a pitch.
Yeah. So true. And listening to some of these calls, you talking about this, it's like actually makes me laugh. I can think of many calls that I listen to, and I'm like, they're literally telling you, yes, they want to do the deal, and you're not even closing it. And I'm like, just close it. And then they got off the phone with them. So then another closer will get on the phone and they'll close that deal. If someone already didn't close them.
I've seen it so many times when I've been helping people get this system set up. You listen to those recordings, you just like, I could have closed this in my sleep. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
He's basically saying, take my house from me.
Right.
All right. Well, listen, I'm going to shoot right into the real estate tech guy fast five. These are 5 questions that everyone's going to answer on this podcast, because I'm always curious as to, what the different people think. So, Terry, I'm going to shoot in. Number 1, what tech product has had the biggest impact on your business?
I have to pair it. I mean, phone system and CRM, those two pieces don't exist without a business doesn't exist without those two pieces. I mean, it never ran properly prior to that.
Absolutely. What is the biggest mistake you've made with technology in your business?
Not having those two pieces, right? That's got to be the biggest mistake.
I'll take it. What is your best advice on how to integrate technology into your business?
How to integrate. You first and foremost, you just need to know the right products. And I mean, for us, I'm a big fan of Salesforce. We use Left Main, pair it with smartphone. And I think, honestly, it's the best formula. I've used multiple different CRMs and a handful of other phone systems prior to meeting with you. And it's like, you just have to, A, find out what the best technology is, and B, use it, implement it, figure out, here's a big tip. A lot of people will get a CRM and they don't even learn what it does, or get a phone system. They don't learn what it does. They don't know all the different pieces. And it's like, they're using 10% of it. Like, I still feel like we use a lot, but I guarantee there's a whole lot more that we can be really doing with those two pieces.
Preach, man. I say that time and time again. And at Tab, I'm going to be saying it over and over again to anybody who'll listen. Stop using it. Take a little bit of time and invest it into getting these things rolling, and you will roll like 100%. So number 4, what's the one thing that you wish you had known when you started your real estate business? Tough one.
Honestly,
One thing.
like okay, one thing. You want to know the one thing?
One thing.
I wish I would have known that you can get skip tracing done with a skip trace company instead of manually doing it. It wasn't until 2017 till I learned that.
I know. Well, I'm gonna have a couple skip tracing companies on the podcast. I've already got a few scheduled in, so that's gonna be a good. I'll make sure I mention that to them. And finally, this is the last one. I think you've answered a bit of it in the first question, which was if someone was just starting out. We think about your mentee, the people you're mentoring right now, and you had to give them 3 technology products that they should bring on first. I'm guessing CRM and phone system are going to be 1 and 2.
Yeah, and a comp tool.
And
a comping tool.
A comping tool. Okay.
Yeah.
Why? Explain just a bit about why that one is.
Because it's like, all right, everyone thinks that you need to be a realtor and you need to have access to the MLS. We have access to the MLS. I used to have access to the MLS in every market, all the markets. I think there's 5 of them in North Carolina. Used to have access to all of them. I just have access to one. I'd never renewed any of the other ones. My local, like this city that I live in, Raleigh, that only gives you part of the data. And we used to run off of prior to having MLS access. We would run Zillow and county data. Like, it's such a waste of time without the right comping tool. You get the right comping tool, it's going to give you all that data, one place, save you a ton of time, simplify it, make it so much easier to train your people.
That is a phenomenal answer. And I have learned something new today, which is very helpful. Terry, I want to thank you, first of all, for being on the inaugural podcast. You and I go back a number of years now, and it's I can't wait to see you at Tab. As we close out, can you let us know where people can find you, the mentorship, everything that they need to find you, and then I'll put those links in the podcast description.
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost, I don't know if I said the dates. Tab Retreat is September 24th through October 1st, right here. We're in 2022. So that's the dates for the 2022 event. To reach me, Instagram is always the easiest, and it's just TerryThayer II, and it's TerryThayerii.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to put the links to Terry's Instagram in the podcast. I'm going to put links to the Tab Retreat along with a code you can use to get a bit of a discount on it. I really, hand on heart, can't recommend it enough. I'll be there. We're sponsoring it. That's how much we believe in it. And I'll be speaking at it as well. Terry, thank you for taking the time, my man. And I'll see you in almost a month and a half.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. A little better than a month and a half. I'm looking forward to it, Jordan. Thank you. Thanks for your support.
I appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to another amazing episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. Head over to thatrealestatetechguy.com to check out all episodes and get special discounts on tons of awesome real estate technology platforms.